Good day and welcome back to Below the Curve Gaming with me, Martin. Today we'll be looking at some more of my Hail Caesar Ptolemaic army. I have some new additions, as we can see. I will do a quick unboxing of these. I'll have some built up to show you. But just to give you an overview, we have some of Victrix's Macedonian successor phalangites. We have First Corps' Ptolemaic command groups for their phalangite blocks, and then as one of the centerpieces of my army, we have some of First Corps' Agema heavy cavalry. So we'll be right back to take a look at what some of these models look like up close and assembled. So here we have some models from First Corps, courtesy of Finian Joyce Velez's suggestion on our previous video. So we've got two of their sets here. We have the Ptolemaic command groups, two of, and as you can see, I've built one group up. So that's these three chaps here. You get a spare champion, and in their photograph on the site, they suggest putting them at the back of the unit, but the units aren't particularly big, and I think that one random chap with a sword at the very back would stand out a bit, so I've decided for this unit to go with the guy with the sword over the top of his head, and for the next unit I will then have the man with the swords held in front of him as the leader. These models are very nice. They're one piece with the exception of the standard bearer, where the standard is separate. The shields obviously are separate, and as we can see down here, they've got a big dimple in the back which then neatly fits sort of around the shoulder or the back of the arm depending on the model. The musician has an Egyptian sort of leather quilted cap. He has a traditional African style drum which he is playing on both sides, as it were. They're a little shorter than the Warlord models, but then that's obviously they're leaning a bit forward. They don't have the same elaborate helmets. The shields are the same size, which I really like, and the level of sculpting is very nice. The only thing I would maybe not complain about, but comment on is it would be nice if maybe there was a couple of options for each of them, in that I'm going to be having multiple command groups, and obviously they're going to look identical. Now over here we have the Agema, maybe pronounced Agema, but we're going to go for Agema, heavy cavalry. Originally I was going to order actual cataphract models, as it certainly hinted at that both the Ptolemaics and Seleucids used cataphracts. However, any cataphract models I could find for this age were definitely Seleucid, and on reading up a bit more, including double checking the army list, it references the Ptolemaics having Agema cavalry. So a bit of digging was required, and Wikipedia furnished me with the answers that Agema means specialised unit designed to safeguard something, in other words, bodyguards. So these troops would predominantly have been led by their king or general. They had armoured horses, long spears, and you'll notice my ones don't have the spears attached. The spears that come with the models are nice, but they're a bit short, so I have ordered spears from Aventine, which are the same length of metal spear that the Warlord models come with. The sculpting is of a very high standard. When you order them, the command group comes with two champion options again. One has a mace and one has a sword. I will probably go with the sword just to keep it sort of with the rest of the army. I think the mace suggests a more Indian or sort of Eastern influence to the army, which would probably fit better with a Seleucid themed army. The horses have really nice helmet plumes. They've got armoured face pieces. As you can see, sort of quilted, probably heavy leather barding that covers the whole horse's body. Yet again, no stirrups due to lack of invention. It's nice to see this attention to detail. The models have different faces. They're not all the same sculpt. And this is one of the issues I found with a lot of the cataphracts, particularly from, unfortunately, smaller companies, is that they do tend to just be the same sculpt replicated. They have that sort of thin, I would imagine, silver trumpet, very sort of Gondor almost, but it fits obviously with the Warlord Games one for the medium cavalry, which is good. All in all, I'm very pleased with these models. The command groups were £5 for 4 models. The heavy cavalry for 12 of them was £27, which, whilst being expensive, is really no more expensive than Victrix or Warlord Games for the same models. They're in metal, as I said, and I feel I've got a really good value for my money. I will glue them down onto the 50mm bases, and I'll have 4 stands of 2 since they're a standard size unit. But I have to say, I would heartily recommend First Corps. They have a really nice selection of models. If you're doing successors in particular, they cover just about every one of these successor armies and the armies of Philip and Alexander themselves. So if you want Seleucids, Bactrians, is that how you pronounce them? They held the very north and west of India following the death of Alexander. If you just want an elite Macedonian army, all tastes are catered to. So very, very pleased with these models. I would definitely recommend. So here we have the Victrix successor Phalangite models. So you can see I've made a stand, I've got a sprue of the regulars, and I have the command sprue as well as the instructions. So first up, these models are 24 models for £22.95. Now this isn't bad, but you consider that the Republican Romans are £29.95 for 60 models, as are the Carthaginians. The Gauls are £35 for 48 models. I did feel a little bit shortchanged in a way, I'll be quite honest. The models themselves are stunning. The pikes are really long, they're nice and thin without being too thin. The helmets, there's a lot of variation. You can have them plumed, you can have them without plumes. They are very upright, so they look quite imposing on the table. So that's the pluses. Now on to the negatives, and I feel I have to say there are a few. Each body fits one pike. There are 3 bodies to a frame, which means that your army will very soon start to look very, very similar. One of my pikes came bent. There were no spare pikes at all. There were no spare shields at all. So any damage that you happen to suffer means that you're going to be short. They don't come in a box, they come in a plastic bag with the instructions holding the bag shut with 2 large staples. This does not bode well for protecting models, particularly in the post. The command group are very nice. They've got, as you can see, the standard, the trumpet, a sword. But yet again, each one goes to one body. Every command group is going to look identical, other than heads. Then we get on to my biggest gripe, and that is, as we can see here, you have the option of making them Seleucids, which gives them what looks suspiciously like denim jeans. In order to make them Seleucid, you will notice the sprues come with sets of legs. You simply chop the model off at the legs and glue the new legs on. If there's one thing I particularly despise, it is hacking through models to then attach other bits. The slightest imperfection, your models are going to be tipped. You run a bloody high chance of taking a finger off, or maybe that's an exaggeration, but injuring yourself anyway. You're going to have to put quite a bit of force onto a scalpel blade to cut through these legs. This is not particularly ideal, it must be said. I almost feel they would have been better just doing a separate Seleucid box. I just think, particularly for a younger modeler, this isn't exactly the best approach. Yet again, the legs, then you've got certain legs that have to be glued onto certain bodies, which means you actually really need to pay attention to what you're doing. Because all the models are very upright, it's fine either to fill out the back ranks of models or if you want an army at rest. However, if you decide that you want an army that just looks a little bit more action posed, then you end up with a real issue, because unlike Warlord, where you at the very least have models with their pikes lowered, you've got like a choice of Warlord. The guy at the back, you have the choice of two arms holding the pike, one completely one completely vertical, and one at a sort of 15-20 degree angle forward. The other guy with the pike held against his shoulder can either have it straight up or tipped back over his shoulder, so the unit at least looks like it's starting to form a phalanx somewhat. These guys will literally just be lines of guys with pikes pointing up at the sky, which, as I said, in its own way is fine. But if you happen to be playing a game like perhaps Saga, I don't play Saga, I'm not 100% sure you get Macedonians in it, but I think you do. If you're playing SPQR, if you're playing something where these models maybe are on the board in a more individual basis, they're just going to look very static. We'll take a look at one of the real positives in this kit, which is the wide selection of heads and helmets. You can see that we get a bear head for the officer, but probably musician. We get several helmets with really nice wings on the side. We get some of the, I believe, Pylos helmets, although they may be the Attic helmets. We get helmets with crests sculpted on. We get several crests and plumes reminiscent of ancient Greece and the Trojan War. And these are optional, so you can elect just to have your guys with bear helmets, as it were, or as I have done, you can stick the crests onto the models. I'm doing this for this entire unit. I'm going to use them as my guard unit, and with the large crests, which will be painted hopefully in a pale blue, the rest of the army will be white for their tunics, bronze obviously for their armour, and then pale blue for the helmet crests and any little details. These will really stand out. Now there's a bit of debate as to the colours of uniforms that the Ptolemaic Empire wore. White appears to be the consensus, but then, as you can imagine, there would have been a sort of variety of spot colours. Total War certainly suggests pale blue or yellowy gold. Some artwork suggests a deeper red. Ben's doing his legion with white shields with black icons and sort of decals on them. And traditionally Rome would have also had that sort of deep red. So I'm thinking that white and blue would be quite a nice contrast. All in all, I cannot complain about the models that I've shown in this video. My next video will hopefully show models from Aventine, another set of models from Victrix, and some models from New Line Miniatures. The Aventine models will be command groups that I have purchased, as well as some of their metal pikes. I'm really excited to see what they look like. Thank you again, Mr. Joyce Velez. The Victrix models are courtesy of Nanny Og on eBay, who has supplied my gaming needs for many a year, but sadly they're out of stock, and so I'm having to wait on my Numidian Light Cavalry turning up. And lastly, New Line Miniatures, who I'm going to give a special shout out to, because the chap on the phone was especially helpful, are supplying 4-horse light chariots. Now normally to get 4-horse chariots you're looking at the Seleucid Empire or the Persian Empire's heavy scythe chariots, but the Ptolemaics used 4-horse light chariots. They were meant to be the Libyan model, which nobody makes, but New Line models do a very wide range of models, including ancient Indians, which nearly had me chucking my army to one side to buy. I'll be honest, I'm still quite tempted, but they do 4-horse Indian chariots that are quite light looking. They've got cutouts in the side, a more sort of wicker looking frame. So I've ordered 3 of them, to use, and they're only £8.53 each, so check them out. He does a really nice range in elephants, cataphracts, infantry for most armies. I'm really looking forward to receiving them, and I will do an in-depth review of them both in component form and built up. So until next time, take care, all the best, and we look forward to seeing you in a video soon.